Can the Bengals afford to keep Jesse Bates? We'll talk about that in rankings coming up next on the Cincinnati podcast.
Yes. Hello, world. We got a special show as always. TJ Houshmandzada, Jimmy Chase, Coach Jimmy Burrow.
How do you balance being a professional athlete and family obligation? These are top 5 Bengals of all time.
All time, man. Yeah. Shock the world.
Welcome to the Cincinnati podcast. I'm your host, Ace Boogie. My co-host, Zim. Zim, say what's up.
Hello, world. I am back. These guys held it down. I hope y'all enjoyed that show last week. Or I'm sorry, not last week, a couple of days ago. I feel like it's been a week, been away from the Cincinnati pod. It was really dope. You know what I want to talk about real quick in true Ryan rant version, right? This just hit my brain this morning today. Do you know that the Bengals played the Rams at a non-neutral site? Like, I don't think, like when we hear about Bengals, you don't have no hardware in your and I know that we were there in LA and I think the adrenaline was pumping. Today I woke up, I said, you know what, bro? Like, we just lost 3 points at their house. And I don't remember in the last 2-3 months anyone that has told us about how we are the third best team, but or fourth ranked, however they got their power rankings, right? Nobody even mentions that part. Like, I think they were kind of mentioning it around the time, maybe. I haven't heard one person talk about the Bengals. It's always in an absolute form, like, you guys lost, period, right? Nobody says anything about that.
The one thing is because there's no Rams fans. We saw that in person. It was majority Bengals fans. Like, it really was almost. I feel like it was 40-40. I feel like it was 40-40 and 20% rich people. You don't feel like that? Yeah, I could see that. I could definitely see that. Yeah,
it was super like rich people, like right there that just was like, "Hey,
LeBron is not a Rams fan, for sure."
Right in that whole section, and then it was a whole bunch of people that was like, "Oh yeah, I heard it was a football game today." Like super rich, $15,000 ticket. Then it was like a whole bunch of orange. Then you got yellow over. I don't, it wasn't. But to play, like they get to sleep, right? To do the same everyday thing, brush their teeth. Wake up and be like, okay, we're going to the stadium that we always play at. I don't know why that just hit me today, and I just thought that no one gives us credit for that. And I feel like I'm Ryan. I just wanted to start off with a quick rant. I needed that.
No, all good. Well, we got a great show planned for you guys today. We're going to talk about OBJ Watch, which is still making its rounds and still a possibility. We'll also be bringing you guys our cap specialist, Andre Perrotta. So we're going to bring him in, do a little roundtable, ask him some questions, primarily about Jesse Bates and some other guys. So I hope you guys are staying tuned for that. And then we're going to talk about our 2022 AFC Power Rankings. We'll get into those. We each have our own list and our thoughts. If you listen to the last episode, you may have caught some of mine, but we'll talk about that tonight. All right, Zimstradamus. OBJ Watch is officially on. Your dream has come true. We didn't get your thoughts last time, so I just want to get your thoughts on OBJ Watch. Is it going to happen? What are the chances? And how do the Bengals let this or make this happen?
I'm glad Andre's here today to talk about the contract that I'm going to propose to OBJ. But the rumors were, I apologize to anybody that saw me on Twitter that's where I said OBJ is downtown. 3 people I know that live in Cincinnati told me that he was there. Now, Bengals Gym and Koch Sports, or you say it's Coach Sports, it's not Koch.
It is Koch.
Okay, so Koch Sports said we can't
Cook
Sports.
Yeah.
They said we cannot deny or say that this actually happened, that he was there. But people called me immediately and was like, "Bro, OBJ's downtown," and these are people that live in Cincinnati. So I'm like, "Oh, all right, cool." So I'm like, "All right." So I will say this. I don't think that it's a far-fetched possibility. If you think about OBJ needs a team that he can win around and make a impact on, right? But he needs to do it in his way. It has to be somebody that could take him on mid-season to the end. That wouldn't be a bad team. You wouldn't take a dysfunctional team and then jump on ship. So now I need to go to somewhere where I can win, and I don't need to be a primary target. Right. Because if I'm a primary target coming off an ACL injury, that's just a lot of pressure on me that I don't need. I just need to build this knee up and then and work my last 3-4 years in the league.
So
Bengals
you're
to
telling me he wasn't spotted at Kings Island? You're telling me that he wasn't spotted at Kings Island with some cheese conies? That wasn't true. That was a photo. Is it the Lyle Collins challenge or like what is it?
Somebody said they saw him at Kings Island.
Somebody said that they saw him, I think, getting on a drop zone at Kings Island. I think I heard someone say that they saw him there. It was OBJ.
Where is the dude that took the picture of Lyle Collins at the mall?
He said, you know what? I've just arrived in Cincinnati and it's already better than Cleveland. It's the best city in the state of Ohio.
Oh, facts.
He was quoted as saying that, I believe.
You know what killed me? You know what killed me? Shannon Sharp goes on the show with Skip Bayless, right? It talks about Cincinnati, like he wouldn't want to go to Cincinnati. I'm like, dude, you know he just played in Cleveland, right? Like,
right. That's what I said. The same thing, and then I had to think about it too, right? Because like I had to ask my wife this. I was like, you know, what did you think of Cincinnati when you were there or whatever? And she was like, you know, I had a whole different depiction of what it was, but she was like, when I went there, she was like, this is a real city. Like, it's lit. It's a whole bunch of stuff to do here. Like, she was like, I didn't think it was going to be like that. And so when Shannon said that, I'm like, don't I remember Shannon talking about how he was from this small city in Georgia? Like, if you're from there, Cincinnati is New York compared to that, Shannon. So if you hear this, wherever you are from in Georgia, we don't even know the name of the city. It is like, yeah, it's not up there with Cincinnati. Let's just start there. Unless you're from New York, Chicago, LA, Miami, you should not be slandering Cincinnati.
Right.
But do you think he could fit into this offense though?
I think so. I think what Joe really wants to do is spread guys out, spread defenses out, and go 4 or 5 wide. He really wants to go back to LSU. That's what he wants to, but it's not practical for a standard NFL. But if you have 4 guys that can win at the line of scrimmage, it's something that can be done. But you need an offensive line to be playing really, really well on all cylinders too, because one guy miss a block, like your quarterback is getting hit. It's very different than college. Like Joe could outrun those guys. NFL is totally different. Even if he's not in those packages, think about all the times that Mike Thomas was out on the field. Think about the times that Trent Irwin and company and guys were out on the field. Those are the snaps that OBJ will play. People will say, well, he was a number 2 receiver. Like those days are over, bro. You've had 2 torn ACLs. You're getting closer to that, to that point, and I still believe that he can contribute to a team that doesn't have a lot of attention on him. And this is a rare opportunity where I think it can happen. I want to talk to Andre about a potential contract for a guy that can only come back for half a year. It's perfect and heavily incentivized for a guy that needs to build his resume back up after the season, come back and hit the open market again, say, hey, look, guys, I just won a Super Bowl and I caught 2-3 passes and a touchdown in the Super Bowl. Why wouldn't you want to sign me?
Facts. That's real. But according to Joe, he's already been making his adjustments, talking about teams are going to play them in too high. He said it's go time. It's right now. He said it's already go time. Joey B is just different, bro. Like the fact that he's ready to go and it's in June and he's already excited. He's already 10 steps ahead of the other teams. Like, what are your thoughts on that? Like just him talking about it's go time and stuff like that when guys like Lamar may or may not be at camp.
we're gonna spill Lamar's. I can't do it. For me, I'm gonna just talk about like Joe. I remember I got in an argument one time on Twitter and I was talking real crazy, like, man, we about to win. We. And the guy said, hold up, bro. Do you think you're Joe Burrow? I was like, I really think I am. I'm a little crazy. I really get on the internet and I feel like I'm Joe Burrow. I'm Joe Burrow's burner account. And the reason why is because I know that Joe Burrow is a complete psycho, but he's well taken care of. Hair always looks good. Always, with his beautiful family, all these different things. I think on the surface level, y'all seen that. But behind the scenes, I think he's very surgical on every single thing that he does. When he talks about his workout regimen, he talks about every element of his life. If y'all really are paying attention, he's really crazy. And so when a guy says it's go time in June, where most guys, like I saw guys on Instagram and they're like, break, bro. We finished OTAs. Let's go to Cancun. Let's go chill out, have some fun. This guy says, yeah, no, I'm locked in. I thought that was wild to me. Like I get being like locked into this is my profession, but like I'm locked in. And then he follows it up with, oh yeah, like in a month and a half we'll be, like, bro, like you're locked in right now. You don't have a
think
game.
About that. If you went to the Super Bowl and it ended like that, wouldn't you be locked in too?
Define locked in. Because see, Joe Burrow's locked in. It's like, let's go outside. Like tomorrow I'm waking up at 5 a.m. I'm about to start working out. I'm going to get 2 hours of this. Like I don't think people talk that talk, like, NFL players and professional sports athletes, they talk that talk, but very few really, really walk that in the off season and all that thing. That's why we always have these conversations about conditioning, all that stuff. Joe said if he goes on a trip, like the personal trainer and everything, he's coming with me. The chef is coming with me. And I think that's really dope, bro. Like that's what it's like to be a professional athlete.
So we kind of touched on Lamar Jackson a little bit. I don't think that there's much to be made about that. Obviously, they're in a contract dispute there. But one thing that I wanted to bring up before we go into bringing our guest up is Zach Taylor confirmed today that the Bengals are fully healthy entering training camp. So that means T. Higgins is good, Logan Wilson is good, Kappa's good, and Osai are all good to go. What does that mean, Zim, for the Bengals, I guess, coming in? Because I think that that's major because you got T back, you got Logan Wilson, who really became a star somewhat last year, and you got Joseph Osai, the best kept secret, coming back. What does that mean to you?
Man, I'm feeling good. I tell you, every single time I talk to you about like offensive line, like, I like them. I press pause on a lot of different things to say, hey, like that was 1 year, but the coaching staff has been together for 4 years. Like all these things are all in a place. And one of my main things I like to do on my daily is I like to eliminate variables. When I look at the Bengals roster and look at the landscape of like how it's set up, it's just not too many variables. Like if a guy goes down, the replacement guy is behind him. Like in a lot of spots. I talked to you about defensive line, maybe a little bit different. I feel a little bit different. I want them to bring Larry O back. I think that could pose a problem. But aside from that, I just feel like everything like seems almost a little too perfect. But people sometimes talk about our confidence, and probably me so because I'm a little bit more louder, I guess. But I think people mistake that for like, I understand that the Bengals are going to lose football games. You win some and you lose some. I just think that in the long standing, this thing that we're about to go into is this football season. I just think that they're built to win. They got all the pieces in play. All these guys are healthy and they're ready to go. And not a lot of teams can say that.
Facts, for sure. Well, we're going to get into our guest, but before we do that, Zim, we have a friend of the show or a partner of the show that you want to talk about real quick.
I wanted to talk about my guys over at Pearce Dental Group. It's downtown Fountain Square. They recently rebuilt their office not too long ago. It's a great place. He put on a Joe Shiesty shirt earlier today, and he was riding around downtown. Coolest dentist in the planet. If you've noticed that a lot of Bengals have a brand new smile, go check out his page. Go check out Pearce Dental Group. You'll see like everybody that's got a brand new smile on there have had it courtesy of our guy, Dr. Pearce over at Pearce Dental Group. So I encourage you guys to go follow him. Go follow them. Get a free consultation. If you're not in Cincinnati, but you can go there or anything like that, you can do a virtual consultation like I did. 100% free. It's great stuff. You're probably going to talk to somebody that says, yeah, that's my dentist right now. So it's really one of those places. So that's how I got put onto them. And so a lot of people are going there, and it's just a place to go to get the best service, the best results.
Facts. Well, with that being said, we want to bring in Andre Perrotta to talk salary cap. Hey, Andre, how you doing today, bro?
Doing great, Ace. How are you? How are you, Zim? Good to see you again. Thanks for having me.
Pretty good. Zim, now you said you talked a little bit earlier about OBJ. Did you want to ask Andre about that OBJ situation? Because I think when me and Ryan talked about it, we tried to tell you that it wasn't possible at all. So
anything is possible. And with number 9, anything is possible. Andre, talk to them about like if you were here and you were in the office, like, I've said that before. You should get with the Bengals and start restructuring some of these contracts. But if you had a chance to do it, what would an OBJ deal look like? Let's just start you off right into it.
Right into the fire with OBJ, wide receiver number 4, I guess. You hit the nail on the head, Zim. It would be a 1-year deal because he tore I think it was the same ACL, right? Or was it the opposite knee? Well, regardless, it was in February, mid-February, the Super Bowl. So he's probably not going to be ready to, like you said, till like midway through the season, maybe a little earlier. But
if that,
right,
it might be a little bit later.
Right. So I think, the minimum salary for a player of his number of seasons in the league is just under $1.2 million. So it would be a 1-year deal. He's not interested in signing anything long-term. To your point, he wants to get up with Burrow and hopefully increase his output and get on the market again next year. Because he's pretty young still. I don't think he's 30 yet. So it would be a 1-year deal. It'd probably be at or around minimum salary, so a prorated portion of 1.2 million, just under. So if it's like for half the season, that's $600K. You can easily slot that in. But Zim, you're a cap guy. You mentioned the incentives in that deal. You put some incentives in there based on receptions and yardage and touchdowns. Even you can add those based on amounts that he did not earn last year. So if he scored like 6 touchdowns last year, you would give him, if he gets 7 touchdowns, that would be considered not likely to be earned. It wouldn't count against the cap. And if he did reach it, he would get his money, and then it would count against the cap next year based on other adjustments on the Bengals cap. So there are ways to structure it at the minimum base salary level, and it will be prorated based on the number of weeks he's available to play. And then you just load it up with incentives, and if he wants to sign the deal and do the deal in Cincinnati, you got a good 4th receiver.
Did you see Ace?
If that's the deal, if that is the deal, sign me up. If you're listening right now from the car, yes, my eyes lit up like a Christmas tree.
No, but I think you doubt it.
Yes.
I think the common conventional wisdom is that OBJ would not take that amount of money.
Exactly.
He may not play for the minimum, but at this point, who else is he going to play for? And at this point, who does he want to play for? Does he want to play for some scrub QB that's a middling quarterback who is going to give him maybe 3 targets a game? Now, granted, he may not get a lot of targets in Cincinnati, but T. Higgins missed. We'll talk about Higgins' potential new deal when he's eligible for next year. But he missed 2 games after he got, I think it was Akeem Hicks tackled him and separated his shoulder. He had surgery this offseason, so it's got to be the right fit. I think. To your guys' point, if he was in Cincinnati, maybe he kind of responded to a Instagram post that Burrow put out too. So yes, I think the fit is there. He may not be looking at a lot of targets, but I think he could still get a decent amount, especially if they go to the 4 and 5 wide. And you're really just one injury away from him stepping in. And frankly, he probably was going to be the Super Bowl MVP if he didn't get hurt. And if the Rams won that game with him being in there. But again, he may not want to play at the minimum, but even if you do let's say it's $5 million, it's going to be a prorated amount because he's not going to play the entire season. You can slot it in the cap. You load it up on incentives that would be considered not likely to be earned, so it doesn't impact the cap this year. And then you roll the dice and you see what you got.
So there's definitely a chance. So just Bengals fans out there know it can happen. I want to talk to you about these guys behind me. How do we keep this trio together and give Joe Burrow a new contract?
Andre, all of our opposition, they all tell us that it's not possible. There is no way that these guys can stick together.
Yeah, it's totally possible, 1. And 2, I think a lot of the not confusion, but a lot of the consternation lies in the fact that people just view they look at a contract, they'll see the reported, and now they'll see the guaranteed amount that's reported. But sometimes really the guarantee, you got to look at what's truly guaranteed at the time of signing, not just what's partially guaranteed. But the reality is people look at the contract and they'll look at the average annual value. So, they'll take a look at Tyreek Hill's deal. Tyreek Hill's deal comes in at $30 million a year. They look, $30 million a year. The reality of that Tyreek Hill deal is that it really backloaded on those. They've had a couple years that in the last 2 years of his deal that Tyreek is probably likely not going to play on. So it inflates the value of that deal. It inflates the average. But then I think in addition to that, they look at the value of the contract, and then they think they kind of like the cap is going to go up. We're past COVID. The cap this year, the unadjusted cap is $208 million and 208.2. I've read estimations that that's going to go up to like 225, maybe even 230. That's a conservative estimate for next year. So I always like to view deals as a percentage of the cap, an APY, right? The API looks huge, right? So the answer, can we fit all the Migos in? I think Tyler Boyd is still under contract for 2 more years, 22 and then 23. I love the Migos nickname that I think you guys coined for them. Which was phenomenal. But if you can do it, T. Higgins now is eligible next year. T also has the same agent as Jesse Bates, by the way. And David Mulligetta is a phenomenal agent. He drives a hard bargain. He's looking out what's best for his guys. But I think you also have to look at the willingness of the player. I think T wants to be here. He knows what he can do with Joe, and he knows what he can do with Jamar. I think Jamar's presence helps T, and Tyler's presence. They all help each other. And I think we obviously haven't even seen T's best season yet. He's still very young. He would have got over 1,000 yards his rookie year if he didn't pull his hammy in the last game against Baltimore. And then, last year he was over 1,000 yards and he missed 2 games, and he didn't play in the final game. So he really missed 3 games. So I think an AJ Brown type contract is a good benchmark maybe for
when would you
next
offer
offseason. So AJ Brown signed a 4-year. He was traded on draft day this past draft season. And then he signed a 4-year, $100 million deal with Philadelphia. Now, that was not an extension. That's a 4-year deal. So that's $25 million per year. People will start pearl clutching. Oh, $25 million a year. Is he worth it? Contracts are really not for past performance. You're trying, the team and the player and the agent on that side are trying to see, especially the team really, what's the value going forward? Like, is T going to give us value at $25 million a year? And I think the answer is unequivocally yes, especially when the cap goes up. So percentage, it's going to be a smaller percentage in the cap each year you go on. So I think he will come around. I saw some rumblings today on Twitter like, oh, he's going to command $30 million. He could. That could be his asking price, but I really think he'll fall in the AJ Brown range of about $25 million a year. And then the following year when when Uno was eligible, I don't think T's contract and then Joe Burrow's extension is going to inhibit or prevent them from extending those 3 guys. Now, the question becomes somebody's going to have to get squeezed out eventually. Is that Tyler Boyd? Is that a defensive player like Jesse Bates? Is that DJ Reader maybe because he's still got 2 years left?
Pratt.
Beyond that, Pratt, although Pratt's probably on a lower scale, but he's a good player. But I'm just talking about contract value.
I think this upcoming season, I think he's going to show a lot, and I think that's Logan Wilson the same way too.
Mm-hmm. Right, so to your point, I think Jermaine is actually eligible for an extension right now. And it wouldn't shock me. I wouldn't be totally shocked if he actually agrees to an extension, like right around training camp, especially if they don't agree with Bates coming up here on the deadline in July 15th.
Smart.
But
speaking of Bates, what are your thoughts on that? Because Minka just got his deal. Like, how do you think that affects Jesse and what they do there?
Yeah, so Minka signed a monster deal. And the thing about Minka, too, I think they adopted what they did with TJ Watt, which was now Pittsburgh, because it used to be Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, and Green Bay were the only teams that didn't offer guarantees outside of the signing bonus. And there's Jesse Bates working out. And I think he's going to meet up with Burrow in Vegas based on what Joe was saying in his presser. So Minka's now was an extension. So people I think the reported value was like over $18 million. It's at highest paid. To me, since it was an extension, you have to include the last year of his 5th-year option. And so it actually brings the value on average down to about $16.85 million on average. Now, that's number 2 behind Jamal Adams. But you remember Jamal was traded to Seattle, so he had a lot of leverage to get that high-end deal. So I think Jesse Bates, I think he could be had. I mean, I'd hate to lose Jesse. He's a team leader. He organized the OTAs last year, when COVID was still going on. Right. I would propose anything, Jesse's always said he doesn't want to be the highest paid player at the position, but he also wants to be compensated fairly. And to me, he struggled during the regular season, but he had an elite playoff stretch for the Bengals. I mean, the Bengals, I don't know if they make the Super Bowl without
Jesse Bates,
without JB3. I mean, and also he helps the corners play too. He can cover so much ground in center field, and he helps Tito. He helps all those guys. So
he helps 2 huge interceptions in that game. You talk about the Ryan Tannehill one. You talk about the one at the end of the Chiefs game. Like you said, I don't think the Bengals get there without Jesse Bates for sure.
Let me ask you this, because a lot of people get fixated on the actual dollar amount itself. Yeah. We talked about, I thought the Marcus Williams deal was a lot more comparable to what I thought Jesse Bates probably would get. Can you talk to me about the difference between the Marcus Williams Raven, if you guys don't know, that's the Raven safety that was recently just signed, versus like the Jamal Adams and then the Minka Fitzpatrick? Like you said, I saw you crunch the numbers and I retweeted it too, because a lot of people say $18.4 million, he's the highest paid. Like, talk to me about the differences in those contracts and where you think Jesse Bates fits in dollar amount in that area.
I think Jesse Bates could slot right between them. So Minka, because you have to include he was on that 5th-year option, I believe, because he was a first-round pick. And so his actual average is it's about 16.85. Marcus Williams signed 5 years, $70 million. That's only, it's $14 million, which actually came in below expectations. And Marcus Williams had the open market. So every team conceivably could have bid on Marcus Williams for his services. And he only got $14 million. Now I say only, but so I think between Marcus Williams 14 and now Minka's 16.85, I think if you offer, let's say Jesse, let's just say you rip up this franchise tag and don't do an extension, you just offer him a straight 4-year, let's say $64 million deal. That's $16 million per. To me, he's now the third highest paid safety in the NFL on average annual salary. He'd be behind Jamal and then Minka, and then it'd be Jesse tied with Harrison Smith, the old Viking safety. But I think what he's wanting, you mentioned Marcus Williams, and I think that's a good data point. I think he wants more than Marcus Williams. And the key metric for me, when I look at Williams' deal, he's earning $32 million over the first 2 years of that deal. And so to me, if I'm David Mulligetta, if the Bengals aren't going to guarantee money outside the signing bonus, I want to beat that 2-year cash earnings that Marcus Williams is getting. Minka Fitzpatrick is beating that. I think he's like $34 million, which was the guaranteed amount over the 2 years. And so for Jesse Bates, I think if you could do like a 4-year, $64 million deal, that's $16 million per season. Let's say you give him a $16 million signing bonus and $4 million base salary. That's $20 million in 1 year. And actually you lower his cap hit because of the proration. You would actually end up lowering his cap hit and creating about $5 million in cap space. But I like those two players because they're comparable both in the way they play. I mean, Minka is maybe better at run support than Jesse Bates. Jesse's a willing tackler, but he misses some tackles. But he can improve in that area. But I like those players from an on-field comparison and then a contractual comparison. I think you can slot them right in there. The reality, though, is, guys, it's probably not going to happen. They have less than a month now. And David Mulligetta is resetting the market for all of his players. And he likely wants to be the first agent to say, I got the Brown family to cave on guarantees outside the bonus for a non-quarterback. Because the Bengals are going to have to change from Joe Burrow's deal. So it'll be tough. We'll see what happens.
So talk a little bit about like that Bengals perception and give like your view on like how they divvy out guaranteed money. Because a lot of people try to say they don't give up that much guaranteed money. What is your perception of how the Bengals kind of view that?
Well, that is true. I mean, they don't give out guaranteed money, but the reality is it doesn't really. I mean, the agents and the player want that guarantee, but the reality is, let's look at Trey Waynes. Trey Waynes, he signed a 3-year, $42 million deal. His signing bonus was $15 million. That was the only guaranteed amount. Trey Waynes played 2 seasons. He was on the roster for 2 seasons, so he earned over $31 million. And so these people and the players are like, oh, yes, the Bengals don't guarantee a lot of money. They don't offer the true guarantees. There are issues of potentially they have to escrow some of that money, although there is a $15 million deductible that they don't have to escrow. But the reality is, look at Trey Waynes. Trey Waynes played for 2 years and he earned over $31 million, even though he only had $15 million guaranteed, because the reality is the Bengals aren't going to sign a guy to a massive contract, pay him a massive bonus. And even if the guy doesn't play, like Trey Waynes didn't play his first year, they're not going to cut the guy after 1 year. They did that with Antonio Bryant back in the day, but that's because he couldn't play. His knee was totally shredded.
Right. I don't think remind us of that, Andre.
No,
don't remind us
sure.
of that.
But
before
you can structure these deals that, okay, yes, they're light on the guarantees, but the reality is the Bengals are going to keep you around. And so you're going to see, maybe not the life of the deal, but you're going to see the first 2 years anyway. And in any multi-year deal, the guarantees are only going to be in the first 2 years, maybe a year 3 guarantee. But the reality, and that's going to be a partial guarantee too. The reality is the first 2 years are guaranteed. So the Bengals will guarantee the signing bonus, but they'll let you play for 2 years. So you're going to get your money anyway.
Right. So we saw Deshaun Watson get what, $200 million guaranteed or something like that, right?
230. Yeah.
What is the Burrow deal looking like?
So I think Burrow's going to want to beat Deshaun Watson. He's got none of the off-field stuff that Deshaun does. And Deshaun's a good quarterback. I mean, let's not strictly football, from a football perspective, he's potentially a great quarterback, aside from the personal stuff and the potential legal issues. But if I'm Burrow in his camp, in no way am I taking anything less than Deshaun Watson. I mean, just because of the issues that you don't have to deal with Joe. You don't have to worry about if he's going to play or be suspended. So I think Burrow's going to come in right around Rodgers. So Deshaun is at the quarterback hierarchy is A-Rod is a little over 50 on average, right? And then there's Deshaun at 46 on a 4 or 5 year deal. And then Mahomes at 45. So if Watson's beating Mahomes, Joe's going to want to beat Watson and maybe come in close to or around the 50 million that Rodgers is at. So I think Joe Burrow, it wouldn't shock me for next year, 8 years, $400 million. That's $50 million a year. Or if they go shorter, it's 5 for $250. If they may go 10 for $500 million, 10 for $500 million, it's 50 as well.
Do it.
And one of the points that you just hit on is something that I try to speak to people about every single day. If you're Joe Burrow, a lot of people think this. He's going to take a hometown discount. He's going to, and I explain to them, if you go to your job and everybody around you is just that work their asses off, and we're classified C, classified D, or however we've picked our salaries. Are you going to say this is my resume, but I'm going to take X amount of money in light of all of these different things? And I think you kind of hit on that. But at the same time, paying him $50 million a year, how does that mess? I mean, well, how does that do anything to the rest of the roster? I guess
like those guys and Jabbar.
Like does it affect those different things? Like I understand that there'll be casualties along the way, like at different positions. I talked about Pratt, maybe Jonah Williams after this season is a guy. There's a lot. Like, how does that affect everybody else around like the team if he is paid what he should be paid?
Yeah, no, you're right. He's not going to take a discount, and he shouldn't take a discount. He's earned his guarantee. He took the team to the Super Bowl year 2 coming off a shredded knee. So, I mean, the guy's earned his money. He can get $50 million. But to your question, Zim, how does it impact? It's a slice of the pie, the cat pie, right? There's only so much of that pie that can get divvied up. And so it's going to provide a squeeze to everybody. But people then look at the LA Rams, right? Like, how are they able to afford all these guys? What the Rams do and the Bengals could do, because they have the ability to keep these guys. And I'll mention what they did back in the mid-2000s too. You guys probably remember. But so, yes, they are making these decisions because they're looking down in future years when these guys are extension eligible. They're not going to be able to keep everybody necessarily just by the way the Bengals operate. But if they wanted to, they could. And the way to do that is to go heavy cash over cap. So you give a guy a huge bonus, like a signing bonus that is pro-ratable. So that the cap hits are actually low for at least the first year, because you give him a very small base salary, but load up on the big signing bonus. So it gets the player his cash right away, but it helps the cap hit because it's a lower cap hit in the first year. So they can do that with Joe. I think they'll probably do that very much with Joe, because they'll probably give him a pretty big signing bonus. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if Burrow got like a $60 or even $80 million signing bonus, and they can pay it out over a course of whatever. But they can. The Bengals, people always say, can the Brown family cut that check? Sure, they can cut an $80 million check if they wanted to. Now, can they cut like 4 $80 million checks? Probably not. Like in the same offseason, they're not the Cronkies, right? They're not the Stan Cronkies or some of the other owners. But look, the revenues are going up in the NFL. Look, Amazon, for just the Thursday night football package, that money is going to come and be accounted for on the salary cap. All the gambling and sports wagering stuff. NFL is expanding overseas too in terms of TV rights deals. So the NFL is a wash in cash. All the revenue distribution is gonna come to these teams, and the salary cap is gonna go up. I mentioned next year could be like 225. Well, in 2024, when Jamar is extension eligible, it may be close to 250 million, and then it's going to go up to maybe at or around 300 million, the cap, by the time this CBA expires in 2030. So yes, some guys are going to get the squeeze because they don't have enough cash to go around. But as far as working the cap, the Bengals did this in the mid-2000s. They had Carson Palmer as the highest paid player in the NFL, and he signed a $125 million deal over 9 years back in 2005. That was 17 years ago. They also had Willie Anderson, who was one of the highest paid right tackles at $6 million. And if you look at the right tackle market, that right tackle market hasn't really moved much in almost 2 decades. So like La'el Collins is playing really on a 3-year, $21 million deal. That's $7 million a year. Willie Anderson was playing on a $6 million a year average a decade and a half ago. They also were able to re-sign TJ on his first extension. Then TJ left later on in the decade to go to Seattle. But they also signed, they had Willie Anderson, Levi Jones was on an extension, Carson Palmer, Chad Johnson, and TJ Ishmanzada. Those were 5 core players that the Bengals were able to keep via early extensions on a much lower salary cap. The salary cap in those years, guys, was around $100 million, maybe 120 million, maybe. And so with the cap going up, yes, these guys are going to get paid a lot. But if you view it as a percentage of the cap, they're going to sign Burrow. Obviously, they're going to sign Burrow. Even though David Mulligetta is a tough agent to negotiate with, they'll sign T because I think T really wants to be here. And then they'll have no problem signing Jamar the year after because Jamar wants to be here too. He's not going to want to leave Burrow. And his agent's a great agent. He's represented Hall of Fame players like Eric Dickerson back in the day. Rocky Arsenault, I believe is his name. But they'll fit all those guys in. Now, maybe maybe they let Jonah test the market, for example. Maybe they're not convinced that Jonah's worthy of an extension because Jonah, I mean, he's played well, but he's also missed some time through injuries. And there's some games where it's like, man, Jonah, what are you doing? You know, he's getting bossed around.
Ace isn't the biggest Jonah fan I've ever met.
Right.
No, I wasn't.
Not Tyron Smith.
It was. I had the same thing that Andre said. It's the availability factor, right? Like that's the only thing that you can.
So to wrap up your point, like there is no way. I don't foresee. Yes, the Bengals don't have the rich owner, but every team is a wash in cash, and they'll sign Burrow, they'll sign Higgins at market deals, and they'll sign Chase the following season. I think they'll be able to keep one or both of Pratt and Logan Wilson. You know, Von Bell is up for an extension too. He's got one more year on his deal. He could do 2 more years. But maybe a guy like Jonah gets squeezed out. But maybe you got a guy like Deontay Smith who develops behind him and is a good left tackle. Deontay Smith has actually some better physical features than Jonah. He's longer.
Maybe Tyson Anderson and Dax Hill and company and guys like that kind of fill the void of a Von Bell too. And I preach that along the way is that I think that there will be casualties and people have to get that out of their mind. Like you can't keep everybody. That's not practical. But the core, I think the takeaway from what you just said, focus on the percentages of the cap and not just the actual dollar amount. And if you do that, the Bengals have done this before.
Exactly.
Right. No, nobody can keep everyone. We just saw Tyreek Hill traded. But Andre, we want to thank you for your time, bro. We appreciate you for coming on and sharing your expertise. Please let everyone know where they can find your stuff.
Yeah, just follow me on Twitter if you want. It's my name, Andre Perrotta 13. And I really appreciate you guys having me on. Hope to do it again with you guys. Keep up.
As soon as Burrow signs the deal, soon as T signs the deal, or say Bates, come right back on. I swear to goodness, we got to break this down.
They just send me the invite. I'll jump right on.
Thank invite you so is much, always man. Open, bro. We appreciate you. Thank you, sir.
Appreciate that. Thanks, Ace. Thanks, Zim.
Yes, sir. And we're gonna go to our sponsor and friend of the show. Zim just tweeted about the brisket fries under the Wincinnati Pod Twitter account. We're gonna hear from those good folks at Midwest Best Barbecue.
Wings, and we got you with them on our wings. On our wings. They tell me that them on our wings will make you do the gritty. Them on our wings will make you do the gritty. On our wings. On our wings. Come and get them on our wings. On our wings. Who they gonna beat them on our wings. On our wings. And we got you with them on our wings. On our wings. They tell me that them on our wings will make you do the gritty. Them on our wings will make you do the gritty.
Tim, so you really let me forget about the mac and cheese. You just really forgot to tell them about the mac and cheese, the sides that they have there, the sliders, the hot dog. Like you just gonna let me forget that. And then for the people that are vegan, I've been hearing y'all like get some options for them. They got the salads there too. But Zim, for real, you was really gonna let me forget about the mac and cheese? Like that's what we doing now. The sweet tea, the Arnold Palmer's, best Arnold Palmer's in the city. We're just forgetting about that now.
That is a fact. And our good friend Greg Luther, he'll be the first one to tell you about the greatness of Midwest Barbecue. I told Tim earlier today, Greg's 10th time, we just need to develop a whole new reward program just called the Luther.
And I saw some people coming around with like rankings for Cincinnati wings. Those G-Funk wings are on there. But speaking of those rankings, we got to talk about our own rankings, bro. So let's get into the power rankings for the AFC. Me and you put out a tweet from the Wincinnati Pod Twitter account, kind of with our rankings 1 through 10, right? And we caught a lot of flack on Twitter. We caught some strays because a lot of people thought we were biased for putting the Bengals first. But run me through your list, bro. Run me through your 10 and why you feel like this is your list, and then I'll run through mine, and then we'll just open the floor for any discussion pertaining to the rankings.
I feel like we're very similar in a lot of different things, but Bengals, I just feel like I'm going to try to make this as quick as I possibly can. Bengals coming off of the Super Bowl, enhanced every single thing about their offensive line, came back in the draft, added a lot of depth in the secondary after losing guys like, all the depth pieces, the Hargraves and the Brandon, Darius Phillips of the world, all those bolstered that room up, right? So that's number one. Number two, I should have went 10-1, but all right, whatever. Then Bills, I feel like the performance that they had in the playoffs with the Patriots and then the Chiefs, absolutely offensively, I wouldn't quite call them a juggernaut, but they're the only team outside of possibly the Raiders, if they get this whole thing together, I think, that have the offensive firepower of the Bengals or whatever. So that's my number 2. I worry about some of the variables, like they're still working on the different things on their defensive line where they do have some studs, but they're still trying to get their arrangement and different things together. But they got about 7-8 guys that they can move on that front. Also, they got some questions at running back as well. Me and you, you came in late. We were in the spaces with them. Cool. Chiefs, they got swept by us, so naturally they go down to 3. But Mahomes, I still feel as though is my number 1 quarterback in the AFC because he's got the ring and he's done it longer than Joe. It's a bigger sample size. Ravens, I feel like if Lamar Jackson is on the field for 14-plus games, like we saw before he went out, I just think that those are just automatic wins because of the threat of his running ability is a problem that the NFL has partially solved, but not all the way solved. Will he always be available? We're not sure. They have a lot of question marks. The left guard, the person opposite of Oweh, we don't know. I guess it's Justin Houston, brand new safety. They don't like Chuck Clark, whatever. Broncos, I like their defense a lot. Adding Russell Wilson, but a brand new coaching staff. So it is what it is, right? Chargers, I believe in Herbert. I believe in a lot of the moves that I think they made. I'm not as big on the Khalil Mack deal as everybody else. I'm not a real names guy. I like youth. I don't really prefer like older, aging guys getting closer to the spotlight. That didn't really move the needle to me. Lyle Collins is like here. Khalil Mack is like there in my weird world because I feel like what he offers from an impact standpoint at this point in his career is far greater, but people will see that as the season plays out. Raiders, I just think outside of us offensively, Waller, Renfro, Devontae Adams and company, Jacobs and stuff, that's the one team, if you dare try to double team somebody, you don't have an answer for like their weapons. Like the Raiders' weapons are for real. Every single other element about their defense and their offensive line are kind of shaky, but the offensive firepower and people forget about Derek Carr. I'm sorry. I always do that. Derek Carr, before Henry Ruggs, had his situation, he was lighting the league up. I think yards wise, he still ended up at the top. Colts, I think are a solid team. I don't think that's a Super Bowl contending team. Browns, had they had Deshaun Cosby, then they probably would have been higher on this list. I like their roster better than the Ravens. Then 10 Patriots, you never go against Bill Belichick. He's got spies everywhere. He'll cheat if he has to. He will figure out a way to get some wins.
Yeah, for me at the top 3, I think the team that has the least questions about them is the Bengals. There was no turnover on the staff. There wasn't that much turnover on the roster outside of improving. They just went to the Super Bowl. Joe Burrow's got a fully healthy offseason. The offense is going to click and have time to develop. No one could stop them last year. I don't think that they stopped them this year, especially with Joe Mixon and that rushing attack. You talk about Hayden Hurst adding another wrinkle. Joe Burrow already saying it's go time, adjusting to different teams. After that, I go to the Bills because the Chiefs did lose Tyreek Hill this offseason. They also ended up losing the Honey Badger as well. I like some of the things that they did in the draft. However, the Bills kept that nucleus together. They did lose their offensive coordinator, though, so we talked about that. They do have Josh Allen, so I'm going to give them the slight edge just based off of them still having their weapons like a Stephon Diggs and guys like that still over there. Getting Dalvin Cook's brother in the draft, I think that they'll be pretty good, adding to that defensive line. So I got them in the 2 slot, Chiefs 3, Ravens I have at 4. That cupcake schedule that they have over there will ensure that they'll be one of the top teams, I think, this season. Then you talk about the Chargers with Herbert. I think that they're going to ascend. I do like the signing that they had at the corner position to add him in there into that room. But Herbert's got to prove it. The Chargers are kind of like the Bengals from years past. They've always had this string of bad lucks. They never end up closing it. We'll see if they do. If their luck changes this season. For the Browns, I put them there because I know depending on how this Deshaun Watson suspension, whether it's 4 games, 6 games, 10 games, if it's the whole season, obviously that drops them down. But if he plays any point of this season, the Browns are going to be up there, in my opinion, if they can get him. And so I like what they do there, but I also like the defense. The defense is really slept on for the Browns. I think that they will end up being a little bit better. And then I've got, rounding it out, Patriots, Raiders, and Colts. And so for me, Patriots, Bill Belichick. With the Raiders, I'm just not sold on that defense, especially in a division where you play against the Chiefs and Herbert. Like, they're going to be lighting that defense up, but I still think that they're good enough to hang with some of those top teams in the AFC. But other than that, are there any games that you're going to? Because I saw this thing going around on Twitter. It was pretty dope. It was a package of some dope games out there, and I found that it's something called Fans of Cincy where you don't have to plan for hotels and all that. I need that in my life. I don't want to go and search for different websites, hotels, airfare. Like, this is clutch for me. Like, I could just pay whatever to them, and then I'm there, and then I'm hearing something. It looks like they have a tailgate going on. Like,
bro, the pregame tailgate sold me at that point. But I talked to my guys over there. I had found it online, and I just thought it was dope to put it all together. And a couple people were asking me about, like, how you going to the game, how you going to get with people when you get to the game, like, how do y'all get, like, make sure everybody together. So I kind of like looked it up, and this place, Fans of Cincy, like, popped up, and I actually got a chance to talk to them. But they were telling me about some of the stuff pre-tailgate and stuff like that. But I think it's a dope way. Like, if you're, like, I know I'm a real good, talker and stuff like that, but a lot of times I'm not like the first guy to walk up to everybody like, hey, how you doing? This thing kind of puts everybody like in the pregame tailgate, and then it also makes sure like people kind of stick together in different things or have different ways that they can get linked up or whatever. And I thought that was dope too.
And that's just super convenience. And you got that. Is that food guaranteed? Because I don't know yet. Is the food guaranteed at the tailgate? Is your meal is guaranteed?
I'm not sure, but I was told a drink. So
a drink is guaranteed. Oh yeah, that's lit, man. I love the future, bro.
So each one is different. Times. So when you go on to see it, and you go on the Fans of Cincy is the name of it. If you're listening, you didn't see the graphic. It's called Fans of Cincy. Go check it out on Twitter as well too. But on Fans of Cincy though, there are different packages for each game. So go look at the Tampa game. Go look at the Saints game. Go look at the Cowboys.
Saints one.
They already got the packages together. So me and Ace, we're going to try to plan some stuff for our families, plan some stuff for our friends. So you're probably going to hear us mention it a lot more because I just think it's a dope way for us to all kind of like link up.
It's dope for sure. But we're going to talk about the Dolphins and Ravens next week, but make sure that you guys are tapped into the Wincinnati podcast, the YouTube channel. If you're watching us live, we appreciate that. Leave us some likes, comments, all of that. We love that. We love that feedback. Also, make sure that you catch the Bengals post, the 513, a lot of podcasts that we got, the new Wincy. All of those are all around. And then was there something that you wanted to say?
If you've ever seen our logo and you thought it was dope, make sure you go to my Twitter, Ace's Twitter, or the Wincinnati Pod Twitter. We're doing a giveaway right now where we're giving away 2 lucky winners. All you got to do is retweet the tweet, make a comment, or retweet or make a comment, and just follow Wincinnati Pod, follow Ace at New Stripe City. Yep. And follow me, Zim, at Zim Hude. If you do those 3 things, we have someone that's writing down all those names, and you're going to be entered in to do a giveaway. This week, we're giving away a Wincinnati shirt. I meant to go put it on before the thing, but if you've ever seen our logo or you go look at the tweet, you can go look at the shirt. There is no charge. There is nothing other than you. All you have to do is that. Just follow us. And
make sure that you guys catch us Tuesdays and Thursdays. Hit that subscribe button. We appreciate it. Check us out in the podcast store. Share this with your friends, Bengals fans. Everybody spread the word. Appreciate you guys for listening to the Wincinnati podcast.
Wincinnati. Yes. Hello, world. We got a special show as always. TJ Wincinnati, Jimmy Chase, Coach Jimmy Burrow.
How do you balance being a professional athlete and family obligation? Need your top 5 Bengals of all time.
Shock the world.